This is a small piece of pyrite. It's also known as fool's gold. It can be found in pretty much every state in this country. And it's made of iron and sulfur, one iron atom combined with two sulfur atoms. And we're going to see if pyrite means anything because it sounds an awful lot like pyro. In this video, we're going to talk about the pyro of pyrite. And there are a couple different types of pyrite. This is specifically iron pyrite, and it's also known as fool's gold. It's made of one iron atom and two sulfur atoms. And pyrite and pyro actually do have something in common, and that is the first three letters, pyre, and in Greek, it means fire. This rock was found to emit sparks when it was clashed with other things, especially iron. And in the 16th and 17th centuries, it was used as a source of ignition, especially with cannons. Nowadays, we don't use pyrite anymore. We use flint, of course. So pyrite is mostly used in producing sulfur dioxide and sulfuric acid. Inside of pyrite, as I was reading on this, because I had some laying around, I noticed that there's iron and sulfur. And I remembered that there were some contact explosives that use these two items here. So I wanted to check into that and see what else I could come up with. When I did, I found a number of different oxidizers that might be able to be used with pyrite to see if we can make something out of it. But to go over that, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Mr. Butane Fireball.
Hello, and welcome. My name's Dr. Mr. Butane Fireball, but you probably know that by now. And we're going to talk some more about pyrite. Pyro and pyrite. Now, I drew a little rock right there. That's supposed to be pyrite. I know it don't look like it, just, use that imagination you got. And in that little rock is that iron and that sulfur. With that iron and that sulfur, maybe we just add an oxidizer and something will burn. So I've got a list here of 4 different oxidizers we're going to mix with that iron and sulfur. That first one is potassium chlorate. Yep. Potassium nitrate, the second one. They both got potassium in there. Next one is ammonium perchlorate. No potassium, but it's a good one. Oh, that's a good one, yep. This last one, potassium persulfate. And that's a good one. Now, we got to try to find the best mixes. We're going to mix this, and this with our pyrite. Once we crush it, and that ain't going to be probably no fun, but we got to crush that stuff into a powder. And we'll light each one and see what happens. I'm excited. Yeah, I am. We ain't going to add any additional metals to this stuff. I think no aluminum, no zinc, no magnesium, no cheating. We're just using the iron that's already in that pyrite. So we're going to find out what works best, and then the big question, can we make a rocket out of pyrite? Well, it won't look like this. That's kind of a big rocket. But maybe we can make a small rocket using pyrite and an oxidizer. And maybe we can make like a bottle rocket. A rocket made from a rock. Hey, rocket and rock. They kind of both have rock in them. All right. That's what we're going to look at the end here. And I think I covered it all.
Crushing the pyrite. I crushed that small piece of pyrite and weighed out at 0.2 grams. To that, I'm going to add 0.35 grams of potassium chlorate, according to a recipe I have for, it's really a friction explosive. You have to rub it between 2 rocks to make it kind of pop. But that recipe actually burns, so we'll see if this burns. I've mixed the pyrite and the potassium chlorate together, and it sure sparkles a lot. I'm not sure if it'll burn. I covered that pile with a piece of masking tape and added a fuse. We'll go and light it and see what happens. Okay, I'm lighting the pyrite potassium chlorate mix. I have never done this, and I have no idea what's going to happen here. Holy smokes, look at that. Well, I'm shocked. Yeah, really surprised. That was as bright as flash powder. Because I got such a great and unexpected result mixing pyrite with potassium chlorate, I'm going to crush these two larger pieces. I know they're not that big, but I'll crush them into powder and see what I can do with them. I'm going to use that steel plate and this extremely old solid iron mallet to crush this pyrite. I don't know how much it's going to take to do this. There we go. But it's working. Here's a pile of our crushed pyrite. It took a lot of work to get it to this point. Weighing our crushed pyrite, we have 4.17 grams. The first experiment I'm going to do with the crushed pyrite is to mix it with a different oxidizer than the potassium chlorate. I'm going to use potassium nitrate here. And the ratios here come from other recipes I'm aware of. Testing potassium nitrate and pyrite. Look at that. It burns, but oh so slow. After using potassium chlorate and potassium nitrate, I'm going to now use ammonium perchlorate as an oxidizer. Same ratios as before. Let's see what happens. Testing the ammonium perchlorate and pyrite. They all burned. It's just amazing. The next oxidizer I'm going to use is the potassium persulfate. The amounts and ratios are the same as before, and let's see what happens. Testing potassium persulfate and pyrite. Well, not really much of a reaction. So these are the things that I'm going to use to try and make a rocket engine using pyrite. I have a piece of plastic tubing here. It's about 1.5 inches, maybe just a little bit more, and a fuse here which barely fits but does fit into the end of the tubing. I don't have any thinner fuse, so this is what we're going to use for now. And then I have a pipette here, and the pipette's here because I'm going to try to make a funnel out of it by cutting it off right about here and then here, taping it onto the end of the plastic tubing here, and that way I can pour powder in a larger area and hopefully siphon it down into the tube. I've cut the pipette down here, and here's the tube. I melted the end here, and what I didn't expect was that it could be put right into the end of this pipette. It fit nicely. To make our rocket engine, I'm going to go with what I think is going to be the best option. Looking at the video of the burns of each of the oxidizers with the pyrite, the potassium chlorate actually spun the cart around as if it was shooting it with some force. And that's all the clue I have, really. But this is what I'm going to go with. I'm going to start adding my powder, which is the pyrite and the potassium chlorate here. And I'm going to have to work this down into the tube here. So I'm going to do most of this off camera. I was able to successfully fill this tube with our rocket mix with pyrite. And so I'm going to take this little funnel thing off, put a fuse in there. So here it is. A little rocket with a fuse in it, where the fuse, I'm pretty sure, weighs more than the rocket. It's ready to go. All right, I'm testing the potassium chlorate and pyrite rocket engine. A little bottle rocket. Well, it sure comes out like a rocket engine, but it's not going to go anywhere.